I can hear the music just fine. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's what? No. Oh,
They kept putting stuff out. They like they got back together in like 2008. I'm sure I mentioned this before, but put together their second album that they had recorded but never released. So they re-recorded it in '08, called Blood, which that was actually from 1995.
okay.
Amazing album. And then they kept putting stuff out, and they still put shit out. And this
So
was
they
off
only put
their.
out one album and then
They put out one album, and I already had an email exchange with the guy because they were my favorite band, you know. And it was in when they were broken up in the late '90s. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, how can I get your album? Because I had lent my only copy of that album, Snail, to a friend who died, so I never got the
okay.
album back.
Hmm.
And I'm like, fuck, this is before streaming and shit. So
Yeah.
I just kind of like somehow I think I just scoured the internet and found like an email address for the singer Matt, um, and I random Hotmail email or whatever just emailed him. And same idea as like when you like I always assumed that anybody who plays music is a fucking rock star and has no time for fans. I just
Yeah.
always assumed that as a kid, not assuming that, not realizing like these guys never made it. They're just like you and I. They're work, you know. When I told him
Yeah.
where I worked, he's like, "Oh man," he's like, "Yeah, I used to deliver packages there as like a FedEx guy." You know, like it's just some
Really?
random dude. Like they're from Bay Area. And so we had this nice exchange. He's like, it's like, and then I don't know. Some time went on, and he's like, "Look," he's like, I think Bandcamp was up or something. He's like, you get this. He's like, and we're putting out a new album. You should really check it out. He's like, but this is actually a re-recording of some old, you know, so he gave me the history. And
Yeah.
I was just so stoked to get my original album, but then I did get Blood, which their second album is amazing.
Nice.
Um, Fast forward like 5 years ago, maybe, I was working at my company and I met this other guy, Martin, who's this massive metalhead, dude. And I didn't realize it because he's so suit and tie, and
Yeah.
he's a consultant, so he's very proper, and he deals with government contracts. But I just one day I'm like, oh, what'd you do over the weekend? And he's like, oh, I was just walking my dog, listening to the new Overkill album. I'm like, whoa, rewind. I'm like, what? You know, then I found out he's this massive, and he's in his 50s, so he's from the UK. So he was there with like, you know, Sabbath and all this, so Deep Purple, like his depth of metal knowledge. The dude owns, at the time I last chatted to him 2 years ago, 7,000 vinyls, 13,000
Wow.
CDs, something like that, maybe 3,000 CDs, but 7,000 vinyls stuck with me. So he's a massive collector. And we once found out we were both fighting for a record. We are outbid. He didn't know my screen name on like this eBay thing, and I was trying to buy this album Black Death by this African American metal band from the '80s, and he was like outbidding me. And then he finally realized it was me. He's like, "Oh shit, I'll stop bidding," you know. But the nicest thing, because I never told him I wanted anything or whatever, but I told him the story of Snail. And the nicest thing was he straight up found a copy of the CD and gave it to me.
Oh,
Like,
really?
I thought it was like, and he's like, dude, I'm like, dude, what can I pay you back? He's like, no, nothing. It was like probably $13, but it was just
Yeah.
such, because he has such a connection to like CD trading and shit. I thought it
Yeah.
was just the coolest fucking thing.
That's
I was,
awesome.
I want to do a podcast with him, or I want him to have his own podcast, but he's too busy to start it. So I want to start it for him.
Yeah.
His knowledge of music and metal is insane. Like,
Hmm.
and he has that voice. He has like a radio announcer voice, this beautiful, clear, articulate. And like you mentioned, any fucking band, like one riff, and he gives you every backlog of them. And it's not like a guy reading notes. It's just in his head.
Yeah.
And I think off the cuff, we were talking metal, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, I always have a soft spot for Beastie Boys, shit like that. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, oh, well, fight for the right. That was Kerry King and blah blah blah.
Cherry
And
King and
Kerry King went
Slayer.
over and yeah, this, and then Slayer also blah blah and Body Count and this. Like, what? Like, and just like these deep, amazing connections. He's like, oh, and this guy also played drums on this album, and he was also the backup guy in this band. It's like, fucking hell, dude. Like, he needs to tell the world what he knows. But he's too busy working a job, like we all are. But anyway, that's my small Snail story, just because we were testing our audio and it works. So we're going to do a podcast, as mentioned, where we go through our music and talk our way through it. And I thought, since this will be episode 1 of this series, we'll start off with our very earliest releases that I have. I don't have the original copies, but so I'll be playing stuff off of But the Stuff Volume 1. So we'll go from that. And Touch My Penis was the very first song we ever recorded, right?
Very first.
Yeah. So
that was such well placed. Such a well placed
And I will always remember holding that microphone and pausing, not knowing what to do, and going, and then just screaming my brains out because we didn't know how to sing, and we did those two uncool to sing, so I just screamed the loudest that I could. That's how we were feeling. And at no point, and then now we're swapping them up. You can't even tell who's who. I don't think like when you're screaming like that, you can differentiate this.
Did we record our guitars at different times?
I don't know. That part there is me removing a bit. Right there again.
Removing a bit?
I removed the vocals on that bit. Because I never liked it.
Really?
Yeah. Right. So there's actually lyrics missing. You probably, and you probably have the original, so you may be able to dig it up and see what I cut out.
No, I don't have the original anymore.
It's the only place I mentioned the band. And I know exactly what it was. It was just saying, "We are the ball, we are the ball."
That part.
Yeah. And I cut that out, and I shouldn't have cut it out. I should have just left it. But I didn't like it because I must have just started high school or been to an intro. I must have started school. We must have been in high school. But that was the chant of my school because we're the bells. We are the bells. We are the bells. And so I just replaced bells with ball. But I always thought that was such a stupid chant. I didn't like it. So, unfortunately, if I find the original version, I will uncensor this because I shouldn't have censored this. That's just me going, oh, I hate that lyric. You know what? It's not my job to censor this.
Sounded like there were some fart sounds there.
I don't know how that slow motion bit got in there.
Yeah.
But that was...
How did that slow motion part?
I don't know.
Because we were doing that on a clock radio, weren't we?
Or
one of the stereos?
I think that was my boombox.
Or boom. It was a boombox. It was something.
Yeah. I think that was my boombox.
And was it one of those 2-tape boomboxes?
Yes.
And so we just take what we recorded on one, put it in the other tape deck, hit play, and then record again.
How I learned to do that was, remember, good God, I think it's in the tail track of what our songs you hear it because we would record over stuff. Um, but God, this is so sad. So in the early 90s, mixing songs was like a thing, and you would send them to the radio and they'd play them on the radio. I don't know if you remember this, but so I don't know why I did this, but yeah, Silver Streety, I think, and I did this, or I wanted to do it, and I would show him, and I would take Milli Vanilli, and I think Bobby Brown, because those were the cassette tapes I'd have, and you would mix it, and it was like, "Baby, don't you lose my number, blame it on the rain." You know, it's just like this mix, and you would mix the songs together. And I remember there was like a radio station that would play that shit, so we were like trying to get on the radio. So I'm sitting there mixing this stuff, but that's when I learned that I was able to overdub. So I was in there fucking around with these tapes and somehow was going in between them. And at one stage I did it where I basically caused Blame It on the Rain and Baby Don't Lose My Number, whatever the two songs that I was trying to mix, overlapped. Yeah. And I'm like, oh. And that was the like kind of light bulb going, shit. Like I can now hear both. So I did like a very preliminary crossfade. And then you know, it must not have been.
What was that? Because you didn't press the record button down all the way.
Yeah, it was something about holding it. Yeah, it was about holding it. God, I think we had to hold like the pause button or some other thing that stopped the erase head. There's some combination we would hold, and the erase head wouldn't drop down, and it was straight up for me trying to make a Bobby Brown Milli Vanilli mix song that I learned how to do that. And I think because
that's pretty epic.
I'm loving that this is coming back to me because that was so silly. And shortly after that, I would have picked up my guitar, and you know, you were very short after, like, as soon as I got the guitar, it wasn't long before you got the bass and we were the band.
Yeah, exactly.
And so because the we are the but lyric was in there, I must have been exposed to my high school, assuming I was in high school. Either that or I went to an open school day and I checked them out. But
we were like freshmen in high school.
That's what I'm thinking. So I'm thinking we're looking at
sophomore. I think it was 93.
December freshman year of high school, which would have been 92.
Well, that would ruin our whole hat. No, because I got my bass on Christmas.
Yeah.
On 92.
Yeah.
So we had to have done it probably over Christmas break in 93.
Yeah. So
like right at the beginning.
I still think 93 holds.
Yeah.
But so there we go. Anyways, that's a fascinating start, if not silly. But on one of our tracks, I'm pretty sure at the tail end, I don't know if we'll find it, but you do hear like "Blame It on the Rain" come in because it was left over on the tape of one of our songs. So going from there, did we record more than one song that day? Because I know the next song we did was either Silicon or Paper. I think it was Silicon.
It was Silicon and Planted Toenails.
Yeah, which is the next song. So
it was the next one.
Start playing that one. Yeah, I know we did that one. And this is us passing the mic.
Yeah.
Do they look lopsided to you?
Are they lopsided?
Live audience.
Yeah, we had a great audience there.
I don't know if that's the same audience we used on Budapest, but I know the audience from Budapest because that was your tape. Do you remember what audience we used for that?
I thought it was Metallica
Yeah, it
live
was
chat.
live shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you had that on tape. Um, the next song I have on this playlist is "Wrong," which is "From a Distance." That's not you, because the next
Yeah.
song would have been "Paper Cut." I
It would have
think,
been Paper Cut,
yeah,
definitely. Because that
paper.
was the original album,
Yeah,
We probably named it because the first thing we said was
uh,
in the Touch My Penis song.
and
We made two album covers for that. I don't know if you remember. You made one and I made one. But then we went with whatever we went with. I don't remember whose it was.
I don't remember whose it was, but it was awesome. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. I think it was the cover of.
I still have a picture of it.
It was either, I think it was LL Cool J or Young MC. It was one of those
No,
guys. I
no.
think it's LL Cool J because he
It
had the
was
shirt
one that
off.
we cut out. The original that we did a cutout, like cut out pictures and drew with crayons,
Yeah,
and it said on it. The one we gave away to people, we did the LL Cool J
yeah,
with
the
the
LL
word
Cool
butt
J. Yeah,
tattooed
yeah,
on his
yeah.
on
It's
his
arm
chest.
or chest or some shit. It's just fucking brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
uh, you forget how fucking clever we were as 15-year-old, 16-year-old kids. At this stage, we would have been, by the time we handed him out, we were 16 because we needed to be 16 to drive places.
Exactly.
And where I live currently, like I'll meet people in their 30s or 40s. There's a lady I give a ride home, her and her daughter. She's my age. They don't drive. It's not uncommon to meet people here that don't drive.
That's strange.
And it's so weird because, like, for us as Americans, maybe not just in Americans, but just as teenagers in the 90s, like you needed freedom. And I guess maybe because we lived in a place with no public transport, like here, like me and my kids just got off a
Well,
bus.
no
Like,
public transport, no internet.
yeah,
You
like
know,
buses are everywhere. And back in the 80s and 90s, I think my city was filled with trolleys, like those trams, like the old San Francisco ding ding ding
yeah,
shit. So like
yeah,
we're a tiny city with massive public transport. So I kind of get it, but still I'd be like, but I want to go away from my city. Like as a teenager, I
yeah.
want to fucking get away. Like we couldn't drive fast enough. I failed my driving test on my birthday because I made the lady cry. And just because she was crazy, she just lost her shit. She thought I was gonna hit somebody or something. Right as the test started, she started crying and made me turn around and failed me instantly. So I had to wait a month. But when I took it the second time, I got 100%. And the lady's like, that other lady must be crazy because you're a perfect driver. I'm like, I know I am, but I had to wait a month. And the worst was on Christmas, my dad gave me that car and I couldn't fucking drive it. But as soon as I could, we fucking drove it and we never looked back. So I think you and I actually got our licenses right around the same time because our birthdays and whatever. But yeah, I remember failing at that first time. Stupid jerk. But yeah, cars are freedom. Man.
Yep.
It was so important. And as we get later when we were making the album covers. All right. So Paper Cut. I'll play it. I don't think we recorded this on the same day. I think I came back another day because you had this riff down.
Okay.
Because I think the first couple songs were recorded literally the day you got your bass. Or maybe there's no bass on there at all and it's just guitar. I can't remember.
No, there's bass on there.
Yeah, but this
because
song
Silicon
is
and Planted
bass.
Toenails definitely had bass. Yeah, this is all bass.
But you had this riff, like you showed it to me.
Yeah.
So I think these were maybe days apart. Maybe a day apart. But,
Quite possibly.
Because the first two songs I remember we laid down. But yeah, this one, yeah, because I don't do anything on this one aside from scream.
Yeah.
There's no guitar on this one. Still, if From a Distance is the best guitar riff I've ever heard, best chord progression I've ever heard, which it is. This is probably my favorite, like, riff, like bass riff. Always has been. Like, I just love this riff. And they're memorable. Like, you hear from a distance, you know it's from a distance. You hear this riff, you know it's great.
This was my original PV bass before I got into the 6-string.
Yeah. Because you move quick through here.
Yeah.
Paper cut.
So I think
that was the end of the first album.
That was the first album.
Well, sorry. No, we had Little Red Things Inside Green Olives was a
was
track
that listed on the first album?
That was listed on
That was okay.
The one where we did cutouts and crayon and whatnot on that album cover. We had that listed as a song and it was just blank.
Great.
We didn't record that until 2000 something.
What?
We did that when we did Poo Poo on the Potty.
Yeah, so
2010.
14 fucking years now. So that gets us through that one. So there we go. That is our first record. That's part 1 of this amazing series. Tune in next time for part 2. And if you've enjoyed this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, stroke my back, and, find us on OnlyFans.